and welcome to worship at Christ Central Church. We're glad you're with us, and we hope you'll sing along with us right now.
There's a prison that's been opened. There's a captive finally released, finally free. I am saved and liberated, every shackle falling to the ground, no longer bound. Sound of the soul escaping free. You captured me, I'm released from the lies that I have believed. Your truth has set me free. Free is the love you poured out on me. I was blind, but now I can see. Set me free. Oh, there's a prison cold and barren. There's a champion rising up to save, conquering the grave. From the darkness, light is bursting. It is finished, death has lost its sting. Lord, I am free. I'm running to the light of day. Hear the sound of a soul escaping free. You captured me, I'm free. From the lies that I have believed, your truth has set me free. Free is the love you poured out on me. I was blind, but now I can see. Your truth has set me free. Escaping free, you captured me, I'm released from the lies that I have believed. Your truth has set me free. Free is the love you poured out on me. I was blind, but now I can see. Your truth has set me free.
Good morning. For those who might not know me, I'm David Creel. My wife Vicki and I are members of Christ Central Church. We're also missionaries with Far East Broadcasting Company, a Christian ministry that broadcasts to those who've not heard the gospel in 124 different languages in 50 countries via radio, podcast, streaming, mobile devices, and smartphone apps. Normally, Vicki and I work from home and travel 3 to 4 times per year to Asia to provide technical support for our radio stations in such places as Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and Mongolia. Of course, during this time, we're not able to travel. Like everyone else, our work has been impacted by the coronavirus outbreak. But the news is not all bad. God promised in Romans 8:28 that in all things he works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. I'd like to share with you how God is using even this pandemic to draw many people unto himself. Fear and anxiety are key issues for many during this pandemic. So many of our radio stations are including professional Christian counselors on air to care for people and lead them toward peaceful ideas in an unsettled season. Some of our broadcasters are severely challenged to get to the studios and have set up makeshift systems in their own homes. FEBC Mongolia airs short and informative promos about coronavirus prevention. They not only discourage people from believing in rumors, but are also offering comfort to their listeners in this current situation and spreading the message of hope. They're also broadcasting weekly live radio church services from the FEBC Ulaanbaatar studio. Unprecedented numbers of people are tuning into FEBC and downloading gospel programs. Quite literally, millions. We've never seen numbers like this before. A massive quantity of calls, emails, texts, and letters are pouring in from people who are desperate to hear the truth that will give them hope for this life and for all eternity. For example, FEBC China Ministry had a record high number of programs downloaded in March, over 1,900,000, an increase of more than 34% compared to January. Since many are not able to attend their usual house church services in China, our broadcasts are extremely important to them at this time. FEBC is also seeing a spiritual awakening within Thailand and in the ethnic ministry during the pandemic. They had an increase of 40,000 listeners in the month of March alone. Our head of broadcasting in Russia and Ukraine echoed our other leaders all around the world when he said in a recent update, quoting here, "Our main focus is not to contribute to the hysteria, but to be a source of hope, without denying the reality of the health and economic problems. We lead by example, showing our listeners how those who have their hope in Christ respond in tough times. We are there to serve and help others. This is also a great time to demonstrate to our listeners what it means to be full of Christian joy during the most difficult circumstances." So as you can see, in spite of the coronavirus outbreak, God is doing some amazing things through radio and the other newer internet-based technologies available to us today. Vicki and I want to thank all of you at Christ Central Church for your partnership in this ministry of taking Christ to the world by media. And thank you for this opportunity to share our God sighting today. May God bless and keep us all.
Thousand times I failed, still your mercy remains. And should I stumble again, still I'm caught in your grace everlasting. Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all things.
Above all else, my purpose remains the art of losing myself in bringing you praise everlasting. Your light will shine when all never ending. Your glory goes beyond all things. In my heart and my soul, Lord, I give you control. Consume me from the inside out, Lord. Let justice and praise become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. Justice and praise become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. And everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades. Never ending, your glory goes beyond all fame. And the cry of my heart is to bring soul, but I give you control. Consume me from the inside out, Lord. Let justice and praise become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. And everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades. Never ending, your glory goes beyond all fame. And the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out. Lord, my soul, rise out. And everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades. Never ending, your glory goes beyond all fame. And the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out. Lord, my soul, rise out from the inside out. Lord, my soul, cries out, Lord.
Good morning and welcome to Christ Central Church. My name is Kevin Asbury and I have the pleasure of serving as part of the pastoral staff here. So I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for somehow curbing the desire to just continue to binge watch Netflix, which is totally understandable considering all the new and wonderful shows and movies that have come out as of late. So if you missed last week, I just want to catch you up a little bit on where we are and what we talked about then. Last week we began this whole conversation about when the world begins to go back to normal, whatever that normal is, should we also rush back to normal with it? Or should we pump the brakes a little bit? The reason being is that maybe in this time where we've got a little bit more time on our hands, where we're maybe a little bit more available, where we have less things pulling at us, maybe it's right now that God is really trying to do some transformative work in our lives. And so if we rush on back to normal with the rest of the world, then how are we affecting the work that God is trying to do in us, the transformative work that God is trying to do in us? And so if you're wondering about what that transformative work is, I realize that we're all unique people and we have God has a unique purpose for every single one of us, but we all find common ground in this. What God seeks to do in every single one of us, is to conform us to the image of Christ for the sake of others. To conform us to the image of Christ for the sake of others. That's what God wants to do in each and every one of us. And in order to do that, it requires some transformation to take place. So what are the areas of my life, what are the areas of your life that need that transformation? What areas of my life really don't look anything like the life of Jesus? And I don't know about you, but I've got quite a few of those things. The problem with figuring those things out is that it requires us to get to know ourselves a little bit better. And for a lot of us, that is incredibly uncomfortable. It's incredibly uncomfortable because of the things that we're afraid that we might find. So right now, we're in this time where we have a lot more opportunity to learn more about ourselves. It could be that we do, in fact, have more time on our hands. It could be that we're a little bit more available. There's a little bit less distraction going on. But I think more than that, we're learning more about ourselves because we're in a time that is unprecedented. Maybe you've heard that word a lot over the past couple months. This time is unprecedented. There's no roadmap for this. There's no how-to manual on how to get through a pandemic like this. And so when we're confronted with things like that, we get an example of what our character really is and how we respond and how we treat others and how we handle what is going on. So like it or not, we're all learning a little bit more about ourselves. So how do you feel about being known? How do you feel about being known? And the reality is it's not just us that know ourselves. We're known by other people, and we're also known by God. We're known by other people, and we're also known by God. And so some of us are reluctant, we're uncomfortable, we're even fearful of getting to know ourselves or of being known. Maybe we're afraid of getting to know ourselves because if we get to know ourselves better, we're afraid of what we might actually find. We're afraid of what we might actually find. We might find that, hey, I've got issues. I've got some serious issues. We find out that we're not exactly who we thought we were. When we get to know ourselves, we discover that maybe I'm not quite the husband that I thought I was. I'm not quite the father. I'm not quite the mother. Whatever it is, I'm not quite the friend. Maybe I discover that I'm really selfish. And so all those things are really hard to confront and find out. So oftentimes instead we just avoid it altogether. And when it comes to other people knowing us, we don't want other people to know us because, you know what? If somebody knew what I knew about me, I don't think they like me very much. I don't want other people to find out that, and you can fill in the blank. This is where we get into that whole discussion about how we all like to put up walls to keep people out and not let people in. Maybe we don't want others to know about our insecurities and the things that we struggle with. Maybe we're hiding our imperfections, or maybe we're just trying to not get hurt again because the last time that we let somebody in, they hurt us pretty bad. You might say to yourself, if I don't like these things about me, if I've spent this time to learn more about me and I don't like the things that I've discovered, then why on earth would anybody else want to know these things either? Why on earth would anybody else like me either? And so the third way that we're known is we're known by God. And you know what? Maybe when we realize that, maybe it scares you to death. Maybe it scares you to death to think that God knows everything about you. More than you know about yourself and more than anyone else knows about you. And for a lot of us, that is our absolute worst nightmare. And it's our worst nightmare because we have a lot less control over that. When it comes to me knowing myself, I can just take myself at face value and not dig deep or anything and just be okay with whatever I know. When it comes to other people, I can kind of, as much as I can control a little bit of what they know about me, put up a front or not let them in and continue to build those walls. But when it comes to being known by God, it demands a level of vulnerability from us that is honestly just downright uncomfortable. But this morning, I want to tell you that it's okay. I want to tell you that it's okay. I want to tell you that it's okay to be known by God, fully known by God. I want to tell you that it's okay for others to know you. I want to tell you it's okay to know yourself. As Christians, in our Christian circle, we talk about this guy named David a lot. David was the son of Jesse, and he became the king of Israel. And as a boy, he killed this giant that was named Goliath. And he was apparently he was an incredible musician, and he was a great writer. That sounds like a really, really incredible guy. And so we could just stop there and say that's all we need to know about David. He's great. And sometimes that's all we do with ourselves. We just focus on the things that are good, and that's who I am, and that's great. But the reality is that David had another side to him as well, or had a lot more that made up who he was as well. David was also known to be prideful. David, he struggled with lust. He saw a woman bathing on the roof, and he took her to be his and had her husband killed. He struggled as a father. David was a lot like us. David was a lot like us in that he had a lot of junk in his life that he would have rather have been unknown. Just like us, David had to live with himself and what he knew about himself. He had to live with the fact that other people knew a lot of stuff about him too. And at some point, David came to the realization, that, you know what? God even knows everything about me. He knows everything about me. But I want you to listen to these words that David wrote in response to that realization of God knowing everything about him. They come from the book of Psalms and Psalm 139. O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, but even in darkness I cannot hide from you. To you the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. O God, if you would destroy the wicked, get out of my life, you murderers. They blaspheme you. Your enemies misuse your name. O Lord, shouldn't I hate those who hate you? Shouldn't I despise those who oppose you? Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. I don't know about you, but that to me doesn't sound like someone who is afraid of being known by God. Good, bad, ugly, warts and all, however you want to put that. It sounds more like hope and confidence in being known by God. David had all kinds of junk in his life, just like we all do, and instead of him spending time hiding that, instead of him spending time being embarrassed about that, he writes this out and he says, God, search me. Search me, know me, find everything out about me, and just let me know, God. Let me know if there's anything that you find that isn't as it should be. How incredible is that? And knowing all of that, this is even more incredible, and knowing all of that, and God doing that, searching Him, knowing all the things that God knows about David, God still wants David to be on His team. He still wants to be in a relationship with David. And so the same becomes true for us. We can say, search me, know me, O God. Tell me everything that is not right within me. Tell me everything. And God will do that, and then the response isn't condemnation, it's I still love you. And I can be there to help that transformative work take place where it needs to take place. God says, I still want you on my team. I still love you. I still want to be in relationship with you. So how long do you think it took David? How long do you think he struggled with that? How long do you think it took for him to find peace with the fact that he could be completely known by God and loved by God? That an all-knowing God knew everything about him and still wanted him on his team. And then what about for us? How long will it take us to find peace with that? To know that God can know everything, does know everything about us. Everything about us. That He loves us just the same. How long will it take us to find peace with that? Here's the peace. If God knows everything about me and loves me all the same, if God knows everything about me and loves me all the same, then I don't have to be afraid of getting to know myself. If God knows everything about me and loves me the same, then I don't have to be afraid of what I find out about myself that I might not like, that might be buried deep down. Like God already knows it and loves me just the same, so I don't have to be afraid of that. And you know what? If God knows everything about me and He loves me just the same, if God knows everything about me and loves me just the same, then that means that when others get to know me, and find things that they don't like or that they're not okay with or whatever it might be, it's okay. I don't have to worry about that because God knows everything about me and loves me just the same. Rest in that. Rest in that. A couple of weeks ago, I was listening or watching, however you want to put it, a Good Friday service that was put on by the Meeting House Church in Ontario. And the pastor, Carmen Bokma, she was sharing some thoughts about this whole idea of getting to know ourselves better. And so she introduced this meme that is going around right now in reference to this pandemic. And this is what it says. I'll read it to you. The one thing I really learned about myself during this pandemic is that my top 3 hobbies are going out to eat, shopping at non-essential stores, and touching my face. I think we can all agree that those are things that we experience, things that we do, maybe hobbies we didn't realize that we had, but it's true nonetheless. But Cameron, she goes on to kind of press in on that a little bit and say, what have we really learned about ourselves? What has been exposed in us? Maybe what we've discovered sounds a little bit like this. Maybe it sounds like I'm not actually as connected as I thought I was. I'm more burned out than I realized. I can't do this, whatever this is, much longer. My loved one is sick, and I am more scared now than I thought I could ever be. I am so incredibly alone. Or I've never been this anxious, this judgmental, you fill in the blank. Personally, for me, I've had this discussion with a couple of people. When this whole coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, when all that stuff came out and they started releasing all this information that was brand new information, if you're this age or below, then you don't have anything to worry about. And you're going to be fine, and it's just like this or it's just like that. Then as the days went on, in other words, with that information, I was going to be okay no matter what. And then more information came out, and information began to come out that suggested that, you know what, there's not really all that many favorites within this. In other words, like, coronavirus is equal opportunity. And so for me personally, and I don't mean to scare you by saying this, but for me personally, it kind of made me stop and think, how do I really feel about death? I understand that's a hard word, and that's something hard to reflect on, but how do I really feel about that? And as I began to think through that in light of Easter, in light of who God is, in light of what my life has been like and my faith has been like, it called a lot of things into question. It called into question, do I really trust God as much as I say I trust God? And so for me, that's one of the things that I have learned about myself through this whole season and experience, and that I'm continuing to learn about myself. Carmen says that as we begin to wake up to these things, as we begin to make space to get to know ourselves, what we call that is, or what she calls that, is holding space. Holding space. The funny thing is, though, is when we hold space and we get to know ourselves, we also have the opportunity to meet God as well. When we hold space, we come face to face with ourselves, but we also have the opportunity to become face to face with God. We come face to face with ourselves. We don't have to be afraid of what we find. We don't have to be embarrassed. We don't have to be weighed down with guilt, but instead we can be like David, and we can be hopeful, and we can be confident. As we come face to face with ourselves, we can also come face to face with God, who loves us the same no matter what. Loves us the same, and loves us enough to look at us and say, yeah, there's some things we need to work on. And loves us enough to do that transformative work. Loves us enough to say, you know what, I want to mold you into someone who looks more and more like Christ. He loves us enough to do that. Maybe holding space and getting to know yourself better sounds or looks a little bit like this. God, I've discovered that during this pandemic, I don't trust you nearly as much as I thought I did. You know that, God. So please help me day by day to trust you more. Or maybe it sounds like, God, I am so anxious. You know that. You know that about me, but God, I'm just praying and asking that you would help me with that anxiety, that you would calm my nerves a little bit. And maybe as you hold space, you discover that you are way more judgmental than you thought you were. And so maybe it sounds like, God, you know, or you see, I realize now how judgmental I am. I don't understand why people have to go out in public and not wear their mask. And I can't believe they wear a mask that looks like that. And can you believe this? And can you believe that? Did you see what they did? And so maybe you say, God, you see all those things in me, and I'm not proud of them. And so, God, I just need you to help me be a little bit more compassionate. Maybe those are things we discover as we hold space, as we begin to get to know ourselves better so that God can do the work that He wants to do in our lives. So here's what I want you to take away from this morning. Here's what I want you to take away. First thing, we don't have to be afraid of this season of learning more and more about ourselves and what we might find. And we don't have to be afraid of that because the Creator of all things, God of the universe, already knows all those things about us and says, I love you all the same. I love you all the same. He knows everything about us and still wants to be in relationship with us. Where else does that happen? Where else does that happen but with God? Where else in your life does someone know everything about you, every little thing about you, and says, you know what? I love you all the same. Doesn't change the amount that I love you. Never will. Only God can do that. God knows every imperfect thing about us and is the only one with the power to transform us into who He has called us to be, into who He has made us to be. It is okay. It is okay to be known. It's okay to know yourself. It's okay for others to know you. And it's okay to be known by God. Because the God that knows us, knows everything about us, and loves us all the same. We are all in need of some transformative work done in our lives, every one of us, so that we can be conformed to the image of Christ. Don't be afraid to hold space. Don't be afraid to plumb those depths and ask God to meet you there. Don't be afraid to do that so that God can do the transformative work in your life that He set out to do, the work that He's made you for, so that He can mold you and shape you to be conformed to the image of Christ for the sake of others. Will you pray with me? God, we thank you so much that you look at us, warts and all, and you say, I still love you. I still want you on my team. Let's get to work. And so, God, we invite you now to help us to be awakened to whatever that work is. God, so that we can allow you to come in and do that in our lives so that we might be more and more shaped and conformed to the image of Christ for the sake of others, for the sake of the world. God, thank you for loving us no matter what. May we do the same for others. I ask all these things in your name. Amen. If you would like to support the mission of this local church, here in just a second you're going to see a slide that's going to give you all kinds of details as far as the ways in which you're able to do that. We appreciate you being with us this morning. I hope that you will plumb the depths, that you will hold space and allow God to show you the things that need to be transformed so that you can be everything that He has created you to be. We'll see you again soon. Bye.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, now forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed thy hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature and manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and the peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, great